Hi, I'm James, and this is Action and Adventure Tips, a place where you, the content creator, can come to learn how to do things right so that way when you're writing those action scenes, you won't get those bad reviews. Remember the whole Glock safety thing? Don't turn it off, you can't do it, and there is a safety. Today's topic, private investigating. How to become a private investigator in the state of Washington, which is where I am. I am a licensed private investigator and have been for a number of years. Now, when you decide to become a private investigator, you can decide to either work for somebody else or to start your own company. If you're going to start your own company, you have to become what is called an agency. So that requires a few more steps than just becoming a regular private investigator. If you want to become just a regular private investigator, all you have to do is find somebody who's willing to hire you. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. First thing is you have to be 18 years old or older. You do have to be a citizen. You don't necessarily need to be a resident of Washington State, although it helps, or a resident alien. In other words, somebody that's here in the United States legally. If you came to the U.S. here breaking the law, in other words, being illegal, you cannot get a Washington State license for being a private investigator. You also have to be not convicted of a crime that directly relates to the capacity to perform the duties that you would be entrusted. For example, I do financial investigations. I think having a conviction of first-degree theft and embezzlement and money laundering, that would sort of prohibit me from doing that kind of a work. You know, if you're convicted of murder, the odds are you're probably not going to get your licensed PI as an armed PI. And the interesting thing is that this decision on the whole convicted of a crime that directly relates to the capacity is at the discretion of the director. As I mentioned, you do have to be employed by a PI agency or offered have a job offer in place. You have to go there and you got to do your little thumbprints. You got to submit thumbprints, and you have to submit an application. And with that application, you have to pay money. In this case, about $220. Sometimes the agency will pay for it, sometimes they won't. And when you, by the way, that fee is non-refundable. So you want to make sure that when you submit that paperwork for getting your background checked, that you've got nothing there that's going to trip you up, because you will not get that money back. And finally, what you need to do is complete what's called pre-assignment training. There are 4 hours that are required, that you're required to take, and there are actually organizations here in Washington State that offer certification programs, one of them being the University of Washington Extension Program, I believe, has one, and I know that Green River Community College used to offer one. So it's not that difficult. You go, you submit all your paperwork, you're 18 years old, you're here legally, and you take the 4 hours of training and pass whatever test they want you to take. Pretty simple, right? What if you want to be an armed PI? Well, then you have to go through a state agency and actually get the training on the firearm that you would be carrying. Now, in previous examples, you've seen me with my Glock 43 and a Glock 23. If I were to be an armed PI and wanted to carry both of those firearms, I would actually have to take a test with each one of those firearms. So 2 tests. I don't even know what they cost, but each test is, another fee. It's real simple. Washington State loves to ding people with fees. Now, let's say that instead of being an employee, you decided that you want to be your own PI, or you want to write about somebody who is their own boss, runs their own little Sam Spade type PI business. It was the one with Calvin and Hobbes. You got to love it. If you want to be an agency, have your own agency license, you have to meet all of the same requirements that the private investigator does, with 2 exceptions. First off, you don't have to take the pre-assignment training. I never did. At least it's been over a decade for me, so maybe that's changed, but the law hasn't changed. What you do have to do is you have to pass an exam, or you have to have 3 years of experience in investigations. Now, originally they said 3 years of experience in investigations, and they didn't specify what. Now the Department of Licensing Law website is saying you have to have 3 years of private investigative experience. I think they probably just got tired of all those cops going in and saying, hey, look, I got 3 years of investigative experience. I got 20 years. I went in there and I was like, yeah, I've got the minimum 3 years of investigative experience, haven't been a police officer. And they went, no, doesn't count. So they made me take this test. And the funny thing is that they tell you that the test is going to be on these subjects, but they don't really give you a study guide. The subjects being such things as state laws, federal laws, court systems, jurisdictions. So you need to know all these different things to be able to actually pass the test, which necessitates, of course, sitting down and studying and doing a sponge and spit episode for one time only if you pass. If you don't pass, you got to take it again. And instead of paying $220 like you do as a private investigator, the fee now for a private investigator agency is $640. That gives you one test. So if you mess up, you got to do it again. And now let's say that you wanted to be licensed to carry a firearm. In Washington State, anybody can be issued a concealed pistol license. But if you're a PI, you can't carry your firearm with you unless you actually have the Department of Licensing PI armed license, armed private investigator license. So that means that even if I have a CPL, I cannot conduct an investigation carrying my firearm. Otherwise, I would be in violation of RCW 18.165, and they would take my license away. So if you're going to write about a PI and they do not have their armed license, don't have them carrying a firearm. Because if they get caught, they may lose their license, and then they'll become an unlicensed private investigator, which, if they decide to do anything like that here in Washington State, is a gross misdemeanor, which means that you could actually get up to a year in jail. Not that I think anybody has ever been charged, but there's always that little thing hanging over your neck. And on top of that, let's say you decide to testify in court and they find out that you are not a licensed private investigator and you have collected all this information. Now you've broken the law to collect information to be used in a court of law. That's typically called fruits of the poisonous tree. Any information obtained illegally is not allowed in court, nor is any of the information that is derived from that illegal collection. So therein lies the problem. And the really interesting thing in Washington State is that we had people who would call themselves financial investigators or even CPAs who would basically say, oh, I'm an investigator, you can hire me because I'm a CPA. And our Washington State law did not give them the exemption. Myself and another CPA worked together with a couple of organizations to actually get CPAs the exemption to do the job that they were doing in the first place anyhow, if they're doing financial investigators. So you're welcome, CPAs of Washington State. Let's see, what else? That's about it. When you're writing about the PIs, make sure that you get it right. I'll probably be covering other states. I do know that I'm going to go a little further into the different types of test and test material for the PI agency and the type of training that PIs are going to get. But for this video, I'm just keeping it simple. To be a PI, you need to be 18 years of age or older. You need to be a citizen or be a legal resident alien, not convicted of a crime that, of course, would impact your work. Be employed by a PI agency or given the offer. Submit your little fingerprints. Make sure that you pass the background check and complete the 4 hours of training minimum. Is that enough for a PI? I don't think so. But a lot of being a PI is actually on-the-job training. Even though I've been doing financial investigations over a decade now, I'm still learning things. I'm always learning things. And that's one of the reasons why I actually am a certified fraud examiner and go through 20 hours of continuing professional education every year. Actually, I go through more than that. Plus, I give talks on little things such as various fraud cases that I've worked on and things like that. So anyhow, I hope you liked it. If you did, click that little like button, subscribe. They were all good. And check me out at jamespeet.com. Stay safe out there.